You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you to the lap of the extra mile for today, February 9th, 2023. And it is time to go back to Daytona. The Clash is over. The Great American Race is right in front of us. Cannot wait to be back in Daytona for that race, although we're not going to be going. Of course, we'll be there in spirit. And help me through it, of course, my co-host, Christopher Lehman. Chris?
How are you doing this evening, Darryl?
I'm doing great. Much better than Kyle Busch right now after apparently what happened with him in Mexico. We'll get to that in a minute. But if you're listening to the show and you are live, make sure to get your comments in the chat. We will read them as the show goes on. So let's go ahead and get started. Post haste. We are, of course, going to start with the LA Clash in the Coliseum, the Busch Light Clash in the Coliseum. Second go around for the Clash. It was fun, but the drivers figured out that you cannot wait. You have to go. And it showed in how aggressive that race is. But if anything was a proponent to not stop counting laps under caution, it was the second half of that race, because it felt like it was like an hour. It felt like an hour and a half to run the first race, or the first half of it. Then Wiz Khalifa performed, and we saw some of the most uncoordinated dancing I think we've seen in recent memory in a NASCAR race. And then it took us like an hour and a half to go 12 laps in the second half because they kept spinning each other.
Yeah, it lasted a little while, didn't it?
Just a little bit.
We really couldn't get a run of more than about 3 laps for about 12 cautions in a row, which was frustrating. Now, I like not counting caution laps, just because if we did count caution laps, we would have had 10 green flag laps out of that last 75.
Yeah.
So there is an argument to be said. However, I would be good with maybe having like a lap where after lap whatever, or maybe let me rephrase this. So saying once you've completed 75% of the race, lap-wise, from 75% onwards, caution laps don't count. Right? Mm-hmm. The first 75% of the race, go for it. Caution laps count towards the tally, but at least the last 25% give us every one of those laps. Mm-hmm. So I would be okay with kind of hybridizing the caution laps counting versus not counting.
Yeah. I think with that race, though, the two big things, I think the other thing other than the caution laps is the fact that 27 starters is just too much for that racetrack. Mm-hmm. I think they need to cut it down to 24 to make it even.
And maybe this will be controversial, but go back to the way it was.
Yeah, it was fine last year. I don't remember how many started last year off the top of my head.
I'm saying even historically.
Mm-hmm.
Why did RFK Racing send 2 cars out there?
Because it's in the contract that all of the charter teams have to go.
I understand.
Yeah,
but back in the day, when we were at granted we were at a bigger track, but this is something that Denny Hamlin brought up on his new podcast that just launched this past week. Actions Detrimental on Dirty Mo Media, but he said, let's go back to pole sitters. Why does every team, more or less every team, get to go show up?
Well,
let's go back to the way it used to be.
I would say that if you weren't doing this in a football stadium and you needed to have more bang for your buck. I mean, having the heats and the LCQs, it's kind of important to this race. They were a lot of fun this year. I think all 4 of the qualifying heats were incredible. The first LCQ was good. The second one was a little bit clean, but, I mean, not clean in a bad way, but, you know, there wasn't a lot going on in that race. But I think having the 23 cars and doing what they did last year was fine. I think 27 was too much, but I don't think you're just going to go out there and have, well, I think we may have had, and I'm just estimating, maybe 15 pole winners last year.
I think 15 would be a good number for the main event.
Yeah.
Because those guys that are starting back in 27th, they're not going to win. What's the point of even putting them out on the track? They realistically have zero shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Realistically. So why? But if you only had like 15 to 18 cars, everybody's at least got somewhat of a shot. Anything can happen in the front, knock some people out, but it was just so packed on there.
You would have had 19 if we just did pole winners. And that's from 2022 polls.
That's a better number. That's four rows less cars.
Yeah, but if you're going to do just 19 in the big show, you better have something out there as part of the prelims to show folks if you're going to do it like that, is what I would say.
That brings me to my next point. They did a terrible job promoting the heat races.
They did that last year. Like
I now, granted, I'm a parent, right? So, but I said to my wife, "Oh yeah, the race is on at 8. I'll watch it," because Henry's already, down at that point. And I turn on the race, and we're like going green flag for the main event, and I'm like, "What the hell?" Like, I know I just missed all of the heat races for it, but it was never even remotely on my radar. Even checking Twitter, everything said 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, they do not promote, and I don't know why they do this. They don't promote the promote the heat races worth anything, and you could see that in the attendance, which started some nonsense on Twitter that we're not really going to get into, but that place was like maybe half full, really like a third full during the heats, but it filled in for everything at the start, which is good to see. But I think for the visual, for the TV, they need to start promoting that the event starts at 5.
Yeah.
So that people can get in there, be packed in for the heats, and go for it. And it's not like there's a temperature issue out there. It's February. Now, they might rain, and we might get to see the rain package on a oval track. It'd be a great test session, because it's not like that track is very big, but I think they do need to promote those heats a little bit better going forward. Actually, a lot better going forward.
Yeah. Yep. Because, like I said, I turned on the TV at 8 o'clock thinking I'm going to see kind of the whole shebang, and I missed half the events for the race. I missed half of the Clash, because realistically, we shouldn't call the Clash the main event. It is the whole event.
Yeah.
I missed half of it.
Yeah, and also, would it kill them to do a late model race on Saturday? Like, you can't get some of the late model stock cars in California together, put $100K to win, race up, and
run quarter
go
midgets
for
out there. Get the kids out there.
Actually, quarter midgets would be a lot better for that track.
Get like the Brexton Bushes and Keelan Harvicks. Get them out there in some quarter midgets and get them going.
Yeah, you could have the heats between qualifying rounds.
Yeah,
you have the heats after Cup practice. You do Cup qualifying, and then you do the little kids race. I would watch it. It'd be great seeing all the tiny little kids run around that track. It'll be the biggest track they run all year.
Yeah, and the biggest audience.
Yeah, you put 10, 15K up for it. It's a little kid race, so you put the money up. You give the kids some exposure. Win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. And you can't tell me that wouldn't make those kids years to be out there on the track.
What always reminds me of the Red Bull or the KTM Juniors in Supercross, where you got the little kids going over the Supercross. That is the cutest thing, and I really want to go see that race live. It is so adorable.
Or like when, like halftime at basketball games, sometimes they bring out the kids teams just at halftime to pass the time, give the audience something to watch. And
I've seen
those
that.
kids. You know those kids. The whole year is made when they get to go out and play on the NBA court. You know, you see it at football games sometimes. Like, I forget where I was. I think I was at the New York State high school football championship or something, and they brought the local peewee teams out, and they just let them go at it for 10 minutes while it was halftime.
Yeah,
it was good entertainment.
Yeah, it's something to do, and I hope it's something that they think about for expanding this event, because there's a lot you can do here if you're going to keep this race for motorsports in general. Now, what you're not going to do, which this has been rumored, is they don't have a points race in SoCal next year, because they've already Auto Club Speedway's already announced that due to the work to reconfigure the racetrack, which I think is a poor decision, but it's done now, they're not going to have a race in 2024 at Auto Club. So now they got to find not only a second race of the season, they got to find a SoCal race. Now, my thought would be just to put Sonoma there, even though that's Northern California. We would finally get to see, race at Sonoma when the grass isn't dead. That would be a nice visual, but the question or the thought was making the Clash a points race.
No.
I think Sunday proved that's not going to happen. And Joey Logano said it as well, especially with the logistics. You can't put the full field out there on that racetrack.
They wouldn't
fit. It looked like the 405, literally.
If they want to do that, they would have to limit it to a charter-only race.
So what they do now, what it basically is now.
Yeah, but you're not fitting. How many have charters? 36?
It's 36. You're not going to fit the 36 charter cars on that track.
You had a hell of a time fitting 27 or 24 or whatever it was.
It was 27. You barely got them on the track.
And after 5-6 green laps into a run, leaders going through lap traffic.
Yeah. Now, I did see on Twitter there was a couple of alternatives that are in Southern California. Kern County Speedway, what is a short track, was floated. Irwindale, I think, could also host it. They host Winston West. God, I'm showing my age on there. They host Arca West.
Not to cut you off, Darryl, but what about a street race?
An LA street race?
What about, I mean, obviously they're not, Auto Club isn't in the city of Los Angeles. I mean, it's
really not.
It's quite a ways east, really. It's I think it's like an hour and a half away from Los Angeles. Like if you're just in a car driving from downtown out there, do a street race somewhere.
Yeah, I would like to see it, but I would not like to see it as the start of the season. Obviously,
no, but do it the week after. Do it the week after Daytona, just like we do now.
It would be.
Move it to downtown LA. Think about, like, we're talking about how one of the things, and I don't want to tangent off on this, so I'm not really going to get in depth, but we talk about how, like, the Monaco GP isn't a race, it's an experience.
God.
But you know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah.
The Monaco GP is not a race, it's an experience. You go there not to watch racing, but to say, hey, I went to the Monaco Grand Prix.
Well, you can't say you're there to watch racing because there isn't any racing. But
Formula One does a great job of saying you went for the experience, not the race.
Yeah.
NASCAR could do that with LA. Think about what they could do if they said, hey, we're going to LA. and we're going to make this thing a star-studded event. You know what I mean? They really have marketability to turn this into an experience, not a race. And sure, you're going to cast out some of your fans. Some of your fans are going to be uncomfortable with it.
I mean, you've done that already.
But at the end of the day, Auto Club, the majority of NASCAR fans are in the Southeast. So they're not going to this race anyway. All they see is what you put on TV. So they're not going to see the parties and the prestige and all the nightlife events that go around to make, the race not about the race, but the show around it. They don't see that. They just see the street race. There are options. It would be lazy for them to say that they don't have options or that they can't find an option. That's just a lazy way out.
I mean, there's definitely an option. They just got to figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah.
The other thing, they can't have a street race or a street race might work. The Clash is a points race. That's not going to work. The race was pretty fun, though. The second half of the race, Bubba Wallace actually ran up front for most of the evening, was in the top 4 after starting 8th, led 38 laps of the event, had a chance to go for a win until Austin Dillon things happened. But Tyler Reddick also had a good run, had a quiet night, finished in the top 10. That 2311 team, with Kurt Busch there being a mentor, the communication between Booty and Bubba has been a lot better. Tyler Reddick coming over, they've had good communication with him and his crew as well. That is a team that could be this year's Trackhouse, where they break out, both drivers win multiple races, both drivers have a chance to go deep in the playoffs, and that would help, especially for one of those drivers, to really shut some people up. But that team, the way it is built right now, it's got some staying power going on to this season, and they're going to be ones to watch all year.
Absolutely, and I think the addition of Tyler Reddick, and this isn't to, I'm not going to compare Bubba and Tyler, because Bubba's a good driver. He's good at what he does, but Tyler Reddick elevates teams. That kid just has something that is unique for a racer. And like I said, I don't even want to compare Bubba and Tyler because it's not fair. Bubba and Tyler do not race even remotely similar. Right? Bubba's not really a risk taker when it comes to riding an inch off of the wall, whereas Tyler Reddick is looking all over the place. Bubba finds what works, and he looks around if he needs to, but he's one of those guys that he's going to find a line that's not as fast, but he's comfortable in, and he can maintain, and he waits for everybody else to make the mistake. He waits for Tyler Reddick to make the mistake, and he's just right there to capitalize on it. Whereas Tyler Reddick is hunting you down on a faster line, but he takes a lot more risk doing that. And so that's why I don't want to compare them. But 2311 with Tyler Reddick, they're going to be a breakout. They're going to have a breakout year. I would consider it a failure of a season if Tyler Reddick doesn't have multiple wins.
I think it's a failure if both of them don't have multiple wins. I think that is the goal for this year.
Correct.
And I think they're going to be fast. And the Daytona 500's coming up. Bubba should have won that race last year. I think 3 of the 5 years he has been in position. Really, the 3 years he's been with 2311, or the 2 years he's been with 2311, he had the issue the year before. This last year, he was inches from winning that race with Richard Petty Motorsports. He ended up finishing, I think, second in that race. He has an opportunity to come in and shut everybody up at the beginning by winning the Daytona 500. And now he's got this rivalry with Austin Dillon that might be brewing because, Austin likes to beat the back bumper off of folks, but the minute he gets paid back, all of a sudden it's time to put somebody in the wall. But let me not get started on that. But
both of our drivers have had beef with Austin Dillon.
Yeah, it is definitely not an Austin Dillon fan club.
No.
Around here, but I know some of our friends are, but, you know, it'd be what it be. But
yep.
Another thing, Ryan Preece.
Hell of a drive.
If the fuel pump doesn't act up, he probably wins that race.
And speaking of fuel, I'm sorry, but the guys that ran the LCQ should have been allowed to top off fuel.
Yeah, I didn't understand that at all. Michael McDowell ended up running out of gas 10 laps before the end because they ran all the caution laps.
Two cars ran out of gas.
Who else ran out?
I forget who the other one was, but they said that 2 of the 4 cars ran out of gas.
I know the 34 did. The 34 did, which ended up causing the caution that got Bubba spun out. I don't know who else did. That was a weird rule decision that they couldn't fuel up before the main. It's not like they didn't have time. They all go back outside before they come back in anyway. So hopefully they change that for next year where all the cars can top up before it's time to go for the duel. I mean, for the main event.
Absolutely. I would agree with you.
Yep. The most concerning thing, though, out of that is the fact, and Bubba Wallace mentioned it, and Denny Hamlin mentioned it on his new podcast, the rear bumpers are still too stiff on the back of these cars. And Hamlin gave the most concerning situation for me when he said the Hans device actually locks up on the seat belt, and he said when it locks, he can feel movement in his head when he gets hit in the back. That is concerning because that's probably what's been causing the concussions. And that's also that movement in the head is what killed Dale Earnhardt.
Yep.
That is not comforting, and we're going to Daytona next week. And we know there's going to be a massive accident. It's just what happens at plate racing now. I am concerned, and I think if they've got softer bumper bars for the front and the rear, they need to go ahead, send a technical directive out to the teams, put the softer bumper bars in. Because the last thing we need with this new car and all of the safety concerns with it is somebody to get killed. And I don't want to stoke fear, but if someone dies or gets another concussion, NASCAR is going to have some serious questions they're going to have to deal with.
Absolutely. And not even going to that drastic of a step, but you had 2 drivers last year who missed multiple months, plural, multiple months due to concussion. You had both drivers were playoff drivers. One had to forfeit the playoffs completely because he was knocked out in like May or June. I mean, he was out early, and now he's retired. He didn't even get back in the car.
Yeah. Kurt got injured in Pocono. That's what it was.
Which is July, right? The first.
Yeah, it was.
It's right after the Coke 600.
No, I'm going to go look at the schedule. I believe it was July last year.
Yeah.
And he didn't come back. He still hasn't been cleared.
Yeah. And then you had Alex Bowman, who is going. He went through the round of 12 or the round of 16 in the playoffs. Goes to Texas, gets a concussion, and he doesn't come back. We're talking September or October, and he doesn't come back until the last race of the season. And I think the only reason he came back was because Greg Ives, it was his last race. Otherwise, I don't think you would have seen Alex Bowman get back in a car last year either.
I don't think he risks it except for it being Greg's last go-around. And Greg was broken up about the injury as well, so.
And actually, I have a lot to look forward to with our new crew chief. I forget his name. It's going to take me a while to remember his name. What the hell? Blake Harris.
Yes.
Who was that was Michael McDowell's last year when Michael McDowell had kind of that breakout year. Blake Harris definitely had us set up. He gave us a hot rod this past weekend. That 48 car was really it was hanging up there at the front all weekend. So it definitely gives us a lot to look forward to for this season.
And apparently, just now, breaking news tweeted out by Matt Weaver, Travis Pastrana just won a modified feature in Volusia.
Really?
He just started driving a modified this week.
Some people are just naturally gifted.
Yep.
There's no way that you beat people that have been doing it their whole lives. When you got in the car this week, unless you are just one of those people who naturally has it. And Travis Pastrana, I've been following him most of my life, really, if you think about it. I mean, he came onto the scene when I was probably middle school, if even earlier, maybe earlier than that. And just everything he does, whether it's a rally car, anything motorized, that guy just has it.
Yep.
He's naturally good at everything he does.
And I wish he had a chance for qualifying practice for the Daytona 500. Preliminary list on J-Ski has 42 cars going for 40 spots. We could have 44 if New York Racing and Team Heisberg show up, but they have yet to announce what they're going to do yet.
Will the rookies get a practice session?
No.
Before qualifying?
No.
Jeez. What? This is asinine. This is so asinine. Kyle Busch said it too. And Denny was all over it. On his he's like, so the next time you see us in a car, we'll be qualifying for Daytona.
Yeah. That's a great way to keep that momentum from the Clash. Not have any on-track activity till Wednesday next week.
That's ridiculous. I'm surprised that they didn't see their mistake and say, you know what, we should give them a practice session.
Well, supposedly the excuse is the teams wanted less practice to save money. Nobody asked you to cut practice time from the biggest race in our season. And nobody asked you for that.
At least for the first race of every track type, so first super speedway, first road course, you should be giving these guys 3 practice sessions before you go to qualifying. Yeah. Let these guys figure out, hey, what did we do this off season? What do we need to change?
And we're barely practicing at plate tracks now, which that is the one place all these guys need practice.
Yeah.
I don't get what they're doing, but we're going to take a break. When we come back, Kyle Busch apparently got into some trouble in Mexico last week. We're going to talk all about that because I have opinions. Also, can the Formula One season just start normally? I'll explain on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered on college ball from the Cal Bears to the Stanford Cardinal, so that no matter what, reppin' in NorCal sports is always reppin' the Bay. So if you bleed red and gold, or you're looking to keep an eye out west in them thar hills, don't miss me, Gina G, on reppin' in NorCal sports. Catch me every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll have your fandom repped harder than a trio of defenders guarding Stephen Curry before his buzzer beater is Gucci.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Darius Live.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
And we're back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Darryl and Chris are here with you this evening. Some of y'all need Jesus in them Twitter trends, by the way, as we were checking those during the break. Some of y'all need Jesus. That's all I'm going to say about that. But that might be one for
a lot of you.
Yeah. A lot of y'all need Jesus. That's all I'm going to say. Some comments during the show. Taryn, fun fact, I picked Busch to win. Just goes to show how much I know about motorsports. LOL. Honestly, with a race like the Clash, you can just throw a dartboard at any of the starters.
Hey, Kyle finished P2.
Yeah, he did. He had a really good race. RCR with Kyle Busch is going to have a lot of. They're going to have a lot of much better runs than they had in the past.
And he went from being spun out. He went towards the back, and he worked his way back up.
Thanks, Joey.
So realistically, Taryn, that wasn't a bad pick at all if you're still around.
And no, none of us picked Martin Truex Jr. to win. Well, actually, once practice and qualifying got done, I kind of felt he might have a chance.
I don't even think we picked anybody, did we?
No, it wasn't a part of the game. It was just...
Okay. I was going to say,
it's not a points race.
I don't remember picking anybody, but that makes sense.
Yeah. Martin Truex Jr., Austin Dillon, Kyle Busch were your top three there. But we're kind of lucky we got to see Kyle Busch on Sunday because before the Clash, Kyle and family went to Mexico for a vacation. And Kyle Busch, and this is his story, so he's sticking to it, and I'm not going to argue it, got caught with a .38 caliber pistol, Ruger P38. It was a Ruger, not a Ruger P38, it's a SIG, but he had a Ruger 38 caliber pistol in his bag that he forgot was in his bag, which is a problem, and he got detained by Mexican authorities. He ended up getting served with a 3.5-year jail sentence. However, in Mexico, if you have a non-violent offense that is less than 4 years, you can just pay a fine and that would be the end of it. So, then that's for everybody. That's not just for rich people, because I've seen people out there talking about, oh, he just did that because he's wealthy. No, they didn't do that because he's wealthy. It's actually a law in Mexico. But he didn't have any other punishment. NASCAR is not going to take any action against him for it, which... if that doesn't violate a conduct policy, getting caught with a firearm in another country, but paying somebody back when they ran you into the wall during a race is a violation, I have a serious problem with that. Kyle Busch is now on a team where one of the sponsors has a relationship with the National Rifle Association, also known as the NRA. And back before they lost their way, they were a huge proponent of gun safety. Now, we're not going to get into the NRA's politics today because at this point they're about anything but. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there is already an issue in this country with the stigma around firearms owners and how they operate with their firearms. And I'm sorry, I forgot it was in my bag is not an excuse. The number of incidents where you lose track of where your firearm is should be 0. Because if you don't know where it is, it could be in the hands of somebody that could be trying to do something dangerous and illegal, or it could be in this situation where now you almost ended up having to spend time in a Mexican prison. And not only that, it shows irresponsibility, which if you're a firearms owner, you cannot do that at all. Now, I'm just going to say it. Kyle should have been suspended for violating the conduct policy. And I don't care. It's his first race with the new team. Give him a waiver for the playoffs, but he should have not have been in the Daytona 500. And it really looks bad. I'm going to keep harping on it every time somebody does something equal or greater than what happened at Las Vegas, and they don't get suspended, but that driver got suspended. I'm going to keep reminding NASCAR this. It looks really...
We should keep a running list of people who did not get suspended that should have.
Oh, I will.
Because we can put Ty Gibbs' name right on there.
Yeah, Ty Gibbs should have been suspended last year, and I'll come back to that. Yeah, for Martinsville. I'll come back to that in a minute. Let me just finish this soapbox. Kyle has got to be better with keeping his firearm. That's it, and that's all. Now, he's got to take care of some stuff to try and... I don't think it's going to affect him in this country having it. I don't know how that works. There was an article about it on Kicking the Tires. It's a little bit convoluted, but Kyle isn't going to lose his license over it. But Ty Gibbs intentionally wrecked his teammate at Martinsville to get into the championship 4. He won the championship the very next week. I'm going to keep harping on this one till the cows come home. Noah Gragson cost $250,000 in damage to the NASCAR Xfinity field trying to wreck Sage Karam. Did not get suspended. And that was before the Bubba suspension. Kyle Busch broke international firearms laws. Did not get suspended. But Bubba Wallace punched Kyle Larson in the face and put him in the wall before that, got suspended. That is a bad look, NASCAR. And I'm going to pass it off as just, and not saying this about anybody, but I'm not going to let incompetence, I'm not going to believe malice when it's just incompetence. But the more this keeps coming, it's going to be more about the former than the latter. And that's all I got to say on the Kyle Busch thing.
Seems fair.
I don't get it. But we'll see. Kyle will run in the Daytona 500, and we will see how that goes. That's going to be a great race. I just hope nobody gets hurt with these stupid bumpers. But anyway, that kind of closes the... Yeah?
Check the show notes at the top right.
Yeah, I see him.
We'll keep our list going.
Yeah, we're going to keep a running tally of this between suspensions. And we'll probably have to reset the clock after each suspension.
Yeah.
I'm adding another one as myself while we're sitting here. But
Austin Dillon?
Yeah. Well, no, Austin Dillon's fine because, everybody was throwing bumpers. Yeah. So I'm not going to count anything that happened there.
The Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin saga continued too.
Oh, God. These two,
yeah. Ross,
it's the first race of the season. Leave him alone. That's going to be a funny plot line. That might have to also be something we keep track of. Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin getting into it, because that's just ridiculous. But we'll keep on going. NASCAR has its own fun. Can Formula One just be normal at the start of the season?
No. We didn't talk about Martin Truex.
Martin had a fast car all weekend. Good. Yeah, they unloaded good. Really, Toyota in general. The 23 unloaded good. The 11 was fast. That's a good thing to see. I don't know what happened with the 54's fire. I think it was a brake line issue. Brake fluid, I think, may have got on the brakes or got on the calipers, and that fire did not look good. Big flames in the cockpit, which we can't see that anymore. But Martin Truex Jr., the fastest car, won the Clash, and he absolutely deserved that win. A great pick-me-up after him and Sherry called it splits, which I think we were all sad about, but it be what it be. But Martin Truex Jr. had a great run. Don't know what this means for the rest of the season, because obviously we won't race on a track this small ever again, but still, great pick-me-up going into Daytona.
Yeah. Be interesting to see how they do at Daytona, who they run with, whether they're going to run with Ford or Chevy this year for pit strategy.
Yeah. Well, the Toyotas, they either are fast at Daytona or they just don't do anything of note. There is no middle ground with them. And it's funny and a little sad, but what can you do? So we go on to the Formula One. As I said at the beginning, why can't the start of the Formula One season just be normal? This is the second straight week where instead of car reveals being the main story, it's more political nonsense. This time, Mohammed bin Salim, the embattled FIA president, it was announced on, I believe, Tuesday, that he will not be a part of day-to-day operations of Formula One going forward into the 2023 season. Now, he has had a whole lot of controversy between endorsing the Andretti bid when no one else was. Then there was the deal that was or wasn't with the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, allegedly trying to buy Formula One, and then the possible devaluation of the sport when he said the $20 billion figure was a bit high on the valuation of Formula One, which nearly caused a lawsuit, by the way, between the FIA and Formula One. He's also courted controversy with the new rule prohibiting political speech, which just looks like an attempt to help Saudi Arabia shield themselves from controversy when the next dubious thing happens, when the sport gets there, when the season starts later this year. Max Mosley got a bad rap when he was the Formula One or the FIA president in the early 2000s. You know, he was the guy at the head during the USGP debacle. Ben is on the fast track for worst FIA president, Chris. I mean, we've heard more about his controversies than we have about car reveals at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, I think there were some pretty bad missteps on his part, and you know, I guess it shouldn't really come as a surprise that he's kind of stepping away. I just hope that it. You're right. Why can't people just shut the hell up and just shut the hell up?
Yeah.
That just. I don't know, Darryl. Like, the strongest thing you can say is nothing.
Yeah. And it's kind of ironic that we say that, given that I think we're all just not a fan of the new rule when it comes to the political speech. But let the drivers handle that part. And if you're in the sanctioning body, or if you're like a team principal, just shut up and let the drivers handle it. But what they've done now is just, if something goes wrong politically while these guys are at a racetrack where that could be a hot button issue, which is any of them, to be honest, the sport is going to be in a bad situation.
Yeah. Yep. Like, yeah, there is a certain irony in telling someone to shut up and then essentially saying to that same person, but you need to let 20 other people talk. I guess the irony is not lost on me in this situation. Mm-hmm. But still, the thing is not every driver speaks out, right? Yeah. Because no matter what you say, somebody doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. You could say, I want everybody to be a millionaire. I wish everybody woke up tomorrow and just had $1 million in their account. And you know what someone would say? They'd say, well, then the price of everything would just raise, so what's the point? Rather than just saying, yeah, I probably could have offended somebody to some degree by saying, I hope you wake up tomorrow rich. Mm-hmm. So allowing, some drivers like Max doesn't really comment on much. And, he doesn't say a lot. You don't really see, Checo, and I mean, you can go all the way down to like Alex Albon and Lance Stroll. I mean, really, the only people who were outspoken are Lewis and Seb, who's obviously retired now. And I don't think this is jewelry ban malicious. Like, the jewelry ban was clearly targeted.
That was clearly targeting Lewis Hamilton, which was stupid, and then it ended up falling by the wayside anyway.
Which, yeah. So, this rule really is only going to affect one person. And then just anybody who's coming up who thought that they would be able to use their platform. Because 19 of the guys in the sport right now are pretty much mum on something unless like their publicist is like, look, dude, you need to say something.
Yeah. It definitely feels like this is just another way to attack your 7-time world champion, which makes absolutely no sense why you would antagonize the guy that is the face of your sport right now. And that's the guy you would want to be out there. He's the one person you would want out there to speak and be the voice of the paddock right now, and you're silencing him. What? Because he's going to be critical of you?
Don't do things to be criticized for.
Exactly. Don't make the teams practice in the aftermath of an airstrike, and you won't have to deal with some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just gonna put that out there. You know, if you don't do something worth criticism, you won't be criticized.
And I want to read something actually that I read today, and I think it's worth reading to you, you know, on the show right now. Let me see if I can. I want to see if I can find. I'll come back to it if I can actually find it, because it was a powerful statement, and I really hope that I liked it so that I can find it. I did. Haha. Here we go. Okay. So as the whole world knows, LeBron became the NBA all-time leading point scorer, surpassing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who until a couple hours ago I did not know was 75 years old. No, I mean, you know,
I didn't know how old he was either.
You know, these guys are legends who played yesteryear, but 75 was like a goddamn. This guy looks like he's in his 50s. Mm-hmm. Like Kareem is a good-looking 75. I hope I'm there. But this is kind of something that I think people need to consider about Lewis Hamilton going for his 8th title that he rightfully should have won a couple years ago. So, and this is kind of out of context in the article, but somebody screenshotted, posted it to Twitter, and I just kind of think it almost draws some comparisons to Michael Schumacher. Like you could almost envision like this is something that Michael would say, especially today given the circumstances. So Kareem says, "But that ain't me today. I'm 75. The only time I ever think of the record is when someone brings it up. I retired from the NBA 34 years ago. For the past 20 years, I've occupied myself with social activism, my writing career, and my family, especially my 3 grandchildren. If I had a choice of having my scoring record remain intact for another 100 years or to spend one afternoon with my grandchildren, I'd be on the floor in seconds stacking Legos and eating Uncrustables." That's a powerful statement. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's these records are meant to fall.
Yep.
Someday, 7's not going to be the standard anymore. Hopefully, it's Lewis, but if it's not Lewis, it will be somebody. 7 is not going to be what this world implodes, goes into a black hole with that record standing. It won't be 7.
7 will fall eventually in NASCAR. It will eventually fall in Formula 1 as well. I have no idea how this is going to happen, but eventually John Force's 16 will fall. Now, somebody's going to have to go on like an epic run that no one has seen before in the sport to do it, but that 16 is going to come down. Records are meant to be broken. And it's fun to see him. I don't know how high LeBron James is going to push his record, but it's going to take a long time before we see his record fall.
Somebody will beat it.
Hopefully, yeah, somebody will beat it. there's one driver on the precipice of beating the championship record in Formula One, I hope we get to see it, and I hope the sport will actually throw their support behind that driver and not continue to throw criticism his way.
And I think where the place that we're really going to have a hard time is Kareem had that article ready to go.
Yeah.
He penned that whole article himself, and what I read was just a snippet. And it's really unfortunate for the racing community as a whole, no matter where you run. NASCAR fans should feel the sting of what happened to Michael. Because we're not going to get that endorsement from him. It's going to come from Mick and the family and Seb. But we will. It's very unlikely that we ever hear an endorsement out of Michael Schumacher, and that's a tragedy.
I just hope whatever medical situation he's in, he's doing well.
Yeah,
because they haven't really updated it, and for obvious reasons, I don't think they really want to really talk about it because it is a private health situation, and those traumatic brain injuries, it takes them a long time to heal, if ever. The brain tissue doesn't really heal. So we'll cross our fingers and hope that Michael's doing well, and hopefully we'll get to hear from him again. But the Formula One season is closing in. I want to see what the next few car reveals are. We do have AlphaTauri coming up the day before the Super Bowl.
And Darryl, hold on to your bingo cards, because we have McLaren and Honda linked together in talks for 2026.
Can I say I did not see that coming?
That was
at all
more surprising than Red Bull and Ford, who we found out about that 2 days before the announcement.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to go. I mean, the last time it didn't go well, but Honda's got more understanding of F1 engines, and I think McLaren has been humbled enough going back, but God bless them for giving it a second go, but it did not go well the first time at all.
And Honda puts out a hell of a power unit. I think that is great for McLaren. If they can snag Honda, which there's probably realistically no reason to think that they won't be able to get Honda. But Honda puts out a really good engine. They're very reliable, and they do not lose much power over the life of each power unit. We remember that back from Lewis and Max's run in 2020 or 2021. Sorry. When Lewis would take a new power unit, he saw huge gains, and Max saw hardly anything. But it's because the Honda did not lose power over the 7-8 races that it runs.
Which is excellent reliability, by the way, that the engines are not getting that hurt despite being worn.
Yeah. So that's encouraging, especially for the Lando Norris fans. Really,
yes.
That Honda is your guys' best shot at him winning anything at McLaren.
Yep.
You just have to hold on for 3 years.
3 more years, and then the die resets again. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, all good. We don't really want to see any more GP2 engine out of Honda. I'll say that much. But these are the next up. We're about halfway through the car reveals. AlphaTauri, as I said, is on Saturday in New York. A couple days later, Aston Martin and McLaren will reveal. Aston Martin at Silverstone, McLaren at the McLaren Technology Center. Then on Valentine's Day, Ferrari will reveal its challenger at Maranello, of course. Mercedes will then be at Silverstone February 15th to reveal their car. And Alpine, February 16th in London, England, we'll wrap up the reveals for the Formula One cars, and everyone will overanalyze every picture to see who's fastest and who won't be fastest. And then none of it will matter until about Q3 on Saturday at Bahrain, because it's probably about to be the only time we'll see the cars at full song before, obviously, the race.
Yeah.
So that being said, that will draw us to a close for this edition of the Extra Mile. Again, if you want to talk to us online, I'm at DK Jr. 12. Chris is at Fiji Sims. Make sure you keep it locked to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the TikTok. And make sure you follow iSports Radio, all its social medias on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok as well. Also, make sure that if you've missed any episode of any iSports Radio show, it can be heard wherever podcasts can be heard, and as well as the YouTube repository. Now, before we go, we will not be here next week, so we do kind of need to make picks for nearest the win for the Daytona 500. Now, we've got some new rules for this year. We'll get into the Formula One rules when we get closer. But we will be going kind of back to the past to go future, where we're going to go back to lowest score wins. Lowest cumulative score at the end of the season will be the winner. Obviously, for NASCAR and IndyCar, no picking drivers back to back. Formula One, we will get to it when we get to it, because that is an interesting thing that we've done to shake that up, to have a little bit more fun and be strategic with that. But we got the Daytona 500 coming up in 2 weeks.
Or February 19th, yeah.
Yep, February 19th. And I am going to take Bubba Wallace to finally win the Daytona 500.
And I am picking his 2311 counterpart, Tyler Reddick.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, they can come across 1-2. I'll take that as long as the 23 is in front. But
So just to kind of go into how the scoring works for a little bit more in depth, as Darryl said, the Formula One is a little bit more of a challenge. There's a little bit more rules to it, but you pick a driver, and wherever your driver finishes, that's how many points you get. So if your driver wins, you got 1 point. If your driver DNFs and finishes 38th in NASCAR, then you just picked up 38 points. So The goal, instead of the points, the person who picked the nearest to win, whoever picked highest getting points, now you're going to be rewarded for consistently having good picks, not getting lucky in NASCAR, not getting lucky in IndyCar. It's going to be, how good are you at mitigating your losses?
And for anyone that's been with the show since the beginning, that's basically how the game started. Matt White, who scored for us for most of the game, actually helped come up with the scoring system. Unfortunately, he will not be scoring this week or this season. But Matt, I want to say thank you so much for all the assistance you've been given to us with scoring the game over the years and listening to the show as well. Unfortunately, we do not have the money to make that Rolex 24 trip happen this year, but we will not Rolex 24 Hours of Le Mans. We will make that 24 Hours of Le Mans trip one day all together, and that's going to be a lot of fun. But that is the end for this episode of the Extra Mile. We will not be on next week because the duels are at 8 o'clock, which is during when we're going to be filmed or usually record, and we're going to want to watch the duels instead of, sitting here talking about the duels. But until then, for Chris, I'm Darryl. This has been the Extra Mile, and we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.